They've been around, in some sense or another, for more than 3,000 years. Having grown more prominent to the public eye by events in the Wild West, which have, and still do, stir panic and fear into a community. But what are gangs? How did they begin? Let's explore their history to better understand them now and in their future. Gangsters had a different name during the 19th century: outlaws. They were more common in western regions of the United States during America's period of manifest destiny. Hence the Wild West. They often had their own hand signs, symbols, and slang, much like street gangs do today. Although gangs operated on the same basic principles, their goals varied. Some caused mayhem for pure profit, while others overran small towns and stole power and territory from the people. All gangs had one major tool in their arsenal: guns. Throughout the late 1800s, guns were far more affordable and easily acquired. These outlaws were rarely seen without their firearms. Even if they were not used, the guns struck fear in people and protected the gang from possible attack. This simple tool changed the face of gang violence forever.
There were many gangs. There were in the Wild West. I'm talking about there was the Burroughs Brothers, Albert Staffel gang, and especially Billy the Kid. Very bad gangs. Actually, Billy the Kid's gang was called the Rustlers. Yeah, they had many exploits in 1876 to 1880. They killed many people throughout New Mexico for countless reasons.
Gangs are a symbol of low-income communities. They are feared. But are they respected? The simple answer is no. By building this type of reputation, they do not earn respect. They simply earn infamy. An excellent example of this starts in the year 1899. Al Capone, more commonly known as Scarface, was born to Italian immigrants and was recruited into the James Street Gang as a teenager. There are several stories about how he got the iconic scars on his face, but one of these seemed to stick. While working as a waiter at a bar, he allegedly complimented a girl. Her brother overheard and demanded an apology. When Capone refused, he ran at him and pulled out a pocket knife. Although the man aimed for the neck, he actually landed 3 slices on the left side of Capone's face. Later on in his career as a gang member, he was asked to assist in maintaining control of gang territories in Chicago and moved there to complete the task. Capone was soon seen as the most violent gangster and used the most aggressive tactics and methods to get his jobs done. His influence hugely shaped gang violence today. These influences are seen everywhere across the country. Throughout the years leading up to World War II, America saw a lot of immigration. People looking for new opportunities travel from all around the world to one of the most iconic sites, Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. As more people came into mostly low-income neighborhoods and ghettos, new gangs were formed and existing gangs grew larger. These minorities, being African Americans, Asians, and Hispanics, made up most of these gangs. Originally, city gangs seemed almost exclusive to the East Coast. However, it was during this time that gangs began popping up on the West Coast and all over America. The year is 1960. Hawaii had just been annexed as the 50th state. John F. Kennedy had just been elected president, and the British invasion was completely taking America by storm. It seemed like it would be a good year. People had high hopes for the future. Gangs, however, flourished. Picking large urban cities such as Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York as their base of operations, these gangs steadily grew more organized with their attacks and activities to gain power and territory. Gangs were becoming so violent that other gangs were formed, just to challenge their strength. The Bloods, a Los Angeles gang, was initially created to compete against the influence of the Crips, one of the largest and most well-known gangs today. Law enforcement in large cities had never seen this amount of street violence since Al Capone's involvement in gangs. As the death toll rose, gangs expanded their alliances all across the country. As drugs became more easily available, especially in areas close to the Mexican borders, drug networks grew as well. The Crips were founded by Raymond Washington when he was 15 years old. He was a student at Fremont High School. It was, in the beginning, it was just a little high school activity just to get away from school, actually. And then it turned to something else, and then they started calling it, at first it was actually called the Baby Avenues, and then it was called the Avenue Cribs. And then when it became more commonly known, everyone started calling it the Crips. Several gangs were soon run like large businesses as the drug network became more popular. The United States became known as the world's largest consumer of drugs as imports from other countries grew. Soon, large cities have become victims of massive gang violence due to these businesses. Although crime rates soon began to fall during the late 1990s, super gangs of some sort were forming. These gangs consisted of members of all nationalities and in all states. It is very difficult to combat gangs such as these because of their widespread influence. Researchers predict that nearly 1 million members are currently active in gangs, and soon enough, that number will rise. It is apparent in today's society how much gangs have affected us. The clothing we wear, to the music we listen to, gangs have a huge influence on us. In popular culture, this has actually put them in a positive light, in some cases. Several gangs have been notorious for bordering cult activities, the most famous being the Ku Klux Klan. Donning the iconic white ghost costumes, they engaged themselves in near-terrorist activities and firmly believed in white supremacy. They have a very strong anti-African American point of view, as well as a hatred of any religion that is not Protestant Christian. They had a radical right, a political position, and often formed alliances with Southern law enforcement officials. These Klansmen, as they were known, went as far as to burn down houses, slaughter entire families, and the bombing of churches. Eventually, their influence began to decline. However, there are still active members today.